Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. We are live with our Bad Blood instant reaction. A lot to talk about from this show. We'll see you after this.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, guys, welcome back once again to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. As I say, there is a lot to talk about, right? A big ending to Bad Blood. Look, we were guessing, would it be Jimmy Uso? Would it be The Rock? It turns out it was both of them. Incredible scenes at the end of that PLE there. A strange PLE as far as the timing and pacing of certain things throughout the show. But I think one that overall we're going to come away with kind of positive memories and thoughts from, right? Let me know in the comments, I should say, your thoughts of tonight's show and what you thought were those final moments. But not just that, of course, we're going to be breaking down the card as we go throughout this event, this stream as well. We got Drew versus Punk, of course, in a crazy Hell in a Cell match that opened the show. Of course, we had Damian versus Priest. We had Liv versus Rhea, which has some talking points as well. Nia versus Bayley, which ended up being that match to go straight after Hell in a Cell. And as expected, the Bloodline big kind of payoff at the very end as well. But again, let us know what you thought of the show. Sludge Sports is in the house. Says greetings. Great to see you, Sludge. Thanks for joining us, buddy. Man, what a wild ending to the show. Now, I've got to be honest, not sure. I don't want to be negative. Not sure it's the way I would have done it. The Jimmy Uso stuff was great. The Rock, as happy as I am about the fact that we've got something to talk about here, and I love The Rock, and I want this storyline to progress. Yeah, I don't know. Just his song hitting and him going, "Remember me," wasn't really it for me. We talked to the build-up show, myself and Lucas, about the potential for The Rock coming back maybe at the end of the Survivor Series and kind of being revealed as the kind of person that's been pulling the strings for the new Bloodline, and it was maybe the real head of the table and all this stuff, and that he put Solo in that position. That's what I was expecting, and if we weren't going to get that, then I think at least some sort of big, crazy return. You know, I guess you could argue like anytime his music hits and everybody's excited, that's a big, crazy return, right? But I don't know. I guess it was good in the sense that the shock was that after it ended, I still didn't expect it, and that's the shock. So that's fine, right? But let's take it back to that. Jimmy Uso return, of course, first of all, that was really cool. And then you get that moment where Jimmy's basically saying to Roman, "Look, come on, we got to help Cody." And they do it. And I thought that, well, that's the end of the show, right? And then there was still The Rock. So credit where it's due. They did that as well. A great way to end the show overall. But let's go back to the very beginning of it. As we mentioned, Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk was the opener, of course, and quite controversial, I think, in some kind of way, because, you know, it is, again, a big blood feud ending with a huge stipulation match. And yeah, it ended up being something that I think a lot of people would be happy with, as far as it being, you know, worthy of the kind of, I guess, would, like, you know, Hell in a Cell title, if you will. But at the same time, that kind of made it feel, again, a bit more of a shame that it wasn't there wasn't the kind of main event that we would have expected. Sludge here says Drew versus Punk match of the year. I mean, yeah, look, it was a great match. I don't deny that. I think that's exactly kind of where I'm coming from as well. I think it was so good that it's a shame they got lost in some ways as an opener. And this is, exactly what we feared when it came to this match, right? When we all kind of heard the news breaking earlier on tonight, or even yesterday, I think it was now, that this match would be the opener, it wouldn't be the main event. But again, it had to be for good reason. It had to be for something like insane, like The Rock coming back in. Well, guess what? The Rock came back. So I could kind of get it in that sense. But it also, I think, didn't sit well for the rest of the show because it meant that the pacing of the show was weird. I know in recent years when you've had Hell in a Cell open and closed because it was naming a PLE, and then you've had the same Rumbles and Chambers and TLCs and whatever else. This time it weren't the same. It wasn't named after the PLE, which again, the match type, I should say. I'm glad. But it meant that we opened with this crazy match, and then what did you have straight away after that? Nia Jax versus Bayley. And again, I think this is a match that a lot of people went to the show thinking, oh, there's, not a lot, I don't want to say not a lot riding on it. There's a title match going on here, but it didn't feel like one that people were excited for. To their credit, though, within that, you had Tiffy come out, and I did like the way they kind of toyed around with that, and she dropped the briefcase. The ref had been knocked out by Nia, of course, got up and handed it to her as if to say, was this yours? And it looked like she'd been given it as a cash-in. Nia sat up, and I thought that was really executed quite well, actually. Bayley, after that, gets a 2. Tiffany distracts again. Then you get the Samoan drop from the top rope. And then a big old kind of, what do you call that move, where Nia just sits on her, essentially gets the 3 count. You did have some awkward moments in this match as well, like awkward Hurricane Rana. There was also like a side powerbomb where Bayley's head hit the side of the barrier, which looked brutal, but also makes me scared because it looked brutal. But I think they did a good job, to their credit. It was a difficult position to be in. And again, it's because we had such a strong opener. By the way, it was great to see Shawn Michaels being paid tribute to with his Bad Blood silver and black attire, of course, from the first Hell in a Cell match, where you had CM Punk coming out and paying tribute in that way. It's odd to see that because he's usually, paying tribute to Brett. And it doesn't have to be one or the other, but, that's kind of how wrestling fans are, right? And he spent a lot of time in NXT lately, it seems, and kind of even jokingly alluded to wearing a Brett shirt when he was on air with Michaels a few months back as well. But speaking of attires, it was funny to see Drew wear a black armband in respect for CM Punk. It's quite funny. But yeah, they started heavy, man. The Claymore on the outside, toolbox being brought out by Punk bleeding very early. Drew kind of playing the mind game, saying like weirdly that AJ's gonna leave you, basically. Your wife's gonna leave you. What? Why? Okay. Punk then again uses that toolbox, and there's a lot of blood coming from Drew at this point as well. You get the Claymore kick out, the Claymore miss, the sharpshooter, which was a bit clunky. It was hard for Punk to get his foot in. Then you get the spanner, or the wrench as they called it on the commentary. Suplex through the table on the outside was a great spot as well. GTS kick out. It was like a WrestleMania match, all these kind of near falls and stuff like that. White noise from Drew. Didn't expect to see that on the steps. Looked pretty cool. The beads, of course, all over Punk, which was a great spot from Drew. What a great visual that was, because you expected it to be, thumbtacks, as the Americans say, as you see in these Hell in a Cell matches, but it wasn't to be. I got images of Cactus Jack, but no, it wasn't. It was beads all over Punk's head, and it worked against him. He missed a Claymore on the steps, landed really awkwardly. The bottom half of his back landed on the steps as Punk then threw beads into his mouth, wrapped a chain around his own knee, and hit him with a GTS. But fantastic ending to that match. And of course, you had the doctors. I thought that was a really cool spot as well, to see the doctors at the end, kind of just making it feel a bit more real. Do you know what I mean? Like they've kind of weirdly enough shied away from that stuff in the past. The whole medical facility instead of saying hospital and whatever else. It just feels like they want to appear brutal and gruesome, but then they kind of don't at the same time. I just thought it was a cool visual, really, seeing Punk sitting there getting oxygen. Like, I know some people might take that as maybe Punk's the wrong person to do it with, if I'm honest, because of the, you know, the comments about it, you know, and the perception of him being injury prone and having health issues over the past few years, you know, relating to kind of, I guess, being older and, you know, not a lack of fitness, but, you know, a lesser tank than he used to have it, let's say. So I'm not sure if that was a good call for it to be Punk, because, but then again, like, whatever, screw what those people think. They don't care, you know, they're not real kind of passionate wrestling fans if they're being ridiculously tribal like that, right? So anyway, I thought it was a cool visual. But yeah, that was the opener, Drew and Punk. Again, a shame it didn't close, but you can kind of see why when what happens at the end of the night. Again, Bayley, Nia Jax was the next match, and I think, again, to their credit, they did quite well to kind of deal with that awkward placement as well. After that, we moved into the Damian Priest and Finn Balor match again, which I thought was a pretty cool match. They mentioned the history of these two guys beyond the Judgment Day, stuff that I'd kind of even forgotten about, the fact that they faced each other in your house in 2020 and stuff like that. When you really start kind of, I guess, getting invested in this match, as most matches you do, towards the end, you start getting high spots, so the overhead kick, a raised edge and a kick out on the two, raised edge on the side of the ring, and then all of a sudden, Jaden McDonough, Carlito come out to try and spoil the party. Finn hits the coup de grace, only gets the two, and the chair gets back into Finn's face. And then you get a few kind of stomps, and eventually Priest does come out on top despite the interference from his former Judgment Day friends. After that, we have a segment with Triple H where he doesn't get the best reception to his announcement. It is basically that there is a new title. Ooh, I know everybody usually gets excited about those. But the new title is a Crown Jewel Championship. Yay, what we've always wanted, right? For the men and the women, a ridiculously oversized title with whatever amount of jewels on it. I can't remember what they said. But the point is that the world champion is going to face the WWE champ in both the men's and women's divisions. And the winner is not going to take the title off the other, but instead get the Crown Jewel Championship. And this is apparently going to be an annual thing going forward. Now, my instant kind of response to that is, I don't like it. But I'm trying to look kind of positively at it, and I think, you know what, fair enough. If we have Night of Champions, right, world title faces WWE title, and sometimes it's awkward there because you have someone lose and it feels like, oh, therefore you're the lesser champ, and there's no gain from it. At least this time they hold up a belt, right? There's that. I do think they always want to add some sort of like stipulation to Crown Jewel, and these Saudi shows to make them feel important, because a few years back you had the Great Royal Rumble, then you start getting King of the Ring and Queen's Crown, and now Queen of the Ring as well. But nope, that wasn't enough. We need to have a Crown Jewel Championship as well. Let's see how it goes. You know, it kind of weirdly enough reminded me of when the Europa League winner faces the Champions League winner. You know, that's what it feels like. Whereas, let's be honest, something that people don't usually care about, but hey, it's a title, technically speaking. You know, saying that, you always go back to Braun Strowman holding up the Greatest Royal Rumble title. Is it a title? No. So let's just see how that plays out. Of course, we do have Crown Jewel coming up in a few weeks' time. A show we completely forgot about, by the way, on the build-up. We were talking about the next PLE being Survivor Series and how this needs to lead to it. And when I realized Crown Jewel was happening, I was like, hold on a minute. Oh, maybe Jimmy and Rock don't both need to return tonight. Maybe we've got some time. No, they're both here tonight, which is, again, a cool moment. Don't get me wrong. Moving away from that, let's move into the next kind of part of the show. You had Gunther coming out basically in response to this Crown Jewel announcement and calling out Goldberg, which was which I thought was really cool. Goldberg, showing off, got out, enjoyed the chance, went over the barrier and tried to get involved. And Sami Zayn all of a sudden takes out Gunther. Of course, on Monday Night Raw, we're going to get the title match between the two of those as well. So I thought they did a really good job at kind of progressing that story and also giving us a little hint to what might happen in the future, maybe with Goldberg. And that's a matchup I never expected to see. But hey, let's see if it does happen. I know Lucas on the build-up show was really missing the days where you would have these kind of background storylines and even background segments. We talked about Halloween episodes of, Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, the old school legend shows and stuff like that. And weirdly enough, we got a bit of that, didn't we, with the hosts backstage. And as much as we kind of said, really, hosts for Bad Blood, talk about shoehorning people in, but I did enjoy this backstage segment. So there is that. Speaking of legends, though, we also had quite a lot of legends being shown off tonight. We had DDP, Mickie James, and Scott Steiner all sitting together as well, which was really nice to see. But the next match we've got to dive into really is again another one that features a feud relating to Judgment Day, and of course that is Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley. Now we were speculating before whether or not this would mean this would end up being the end of the feud. No, it doesn't look like it, because Raquel Rodriguez, that's the big story coming out of this. She basically arrived back on the scene, took out Rhea Ripley and helped Liv Morgan, I won't say win the match, but then again, I don't think the referee or anyone knows what actually happened here, because they had this awkward finish where Dom was hanging upside down, which we'll get to in a minute. But essentially, Raquel comes in, takes out Rhea. Ref was kind of just looking everywhere but the action. And then Raquel got in the ring, and after a little while, the ref or someone signaled for the bell, because the bell went, and then Raquel carried on beating up Rhea and then threw Liv on top, and then the commentators had to awkwardly say that's symbolic, and then she awkwardly pulled her back off. And who knows, was it supposed to be a pin and the ref or the timekeeper messed up, or was it supposed to be a DQ and Raquel got caught up in a moment? Either way, it weren't great. But hey, nice to see Raquel back. It's just a shame it was a bit of a cluster. I'm looking forward to seeing what this means, right? Is she back and in the Judgment Day now? Is that what's going on? I mean, they talked about her being with Liv in the past. Is she back with Liv properly, or is it more about beating up Rhea? I mean, it seemed like a kind of connection with Liv, right? So be interested to see what happens there. But the match itself was pretty good. The entrance itself as well. We saw those clips going around online, right? Those pictures of the lowrider. And of course, that was, as expected, linked to Dominik Mysterio. Had a cool promo video with himself and Liv Morgan. And then, arrived into the arena in the lowrider as well. Which then I think they kind of tried to flog a toy car or something like that. Is that why we're doing this entrance? Because they're selling a luchador car or something like that. Well, there we go. I guess it works. Then you had the shark cage, of course, being set up, weirdly enough, above the ramp rather than within the ring. But once the match got underway, I started to think, hold on a minute, how can they do a shark cage match? Because there's a cell over there. So interesting to see how they worked around those kind of dynamics. Of course, it meant that there was no shark cage directly above the ring. And that was okay. It was over the ramp, and you had this crazy spot where Dom leans too far forward. And I remember thinking when he was leaning, steady on, mate, that's a bit far. Not realizing he had something attached to his leg. Because then he just fell. And I, heart in my mouth. I was, what is that? But it was fine. He was hanging upside down. It became basically a human pinata for Rhea Ripley, as expected when he was in that position. She picks up the kendo stick and goes to town. But before that, pretty decent match between the two women here. You had the sunset flip into the barrier by Liv, which was quite tasty. And then an insane top rope code breaker as well from Liv Morgan. Great timing there from the two women on that spot. But yeah, that fall essentially from Dom was scary. But hey, kind of expected some sort of shenanigans right around the shark cage itself. So different to what I expected, but still an enjoyable kind of end to that match. Well, that part, except for when it got all messy. That wasn't great, let's be honest. Then we got a tease for the Motor City Machine Guns. Surely, right? That's what we saw there. It showed Detroit, and I was thinking, oh, this is just your typical like PLE advert for an event in Detroit. And then there was no PLE logo. I was like, oh, and I kind of forgot about it. And then I was like, wait, what was that? Oh, I think that might be the Motor City Machine Guns. So yeah, that's an interesting development, right? We talked about that a bit on the build-up show with Lucas. So interesting to see that they are basically being, promoted already as coming soon. So it'd be interesting to see how they debut. Are they going to reveal them within these video packages, or are they just going to show up? Be interested to see. And these are two guys that have, as I mentioned with Lucas earlier on, made a great kind of impact, no pun intended, within TNA and that ecosystem years ago. I would never expect them to show up in WWE at this stage, but at the same time, I said the same thing about AJ. I remember when AJ Styles went to Japan, left TNA, and it was like, 2014, 15, that era. I'm thinking, no, it would have been just before that, because that's when he shows him WWE. But my whole point is, I was thinking, that's it. He's not going to WWE now. And, well, he's been there for a long time now. So it's quite wild when you think about that. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens with Motor City Machine Guns. That was a slip up we didn't want. And it'd be cool to see what happens when they do arrive on the scene. Then we do get into the main event. Of course, a big talking point for the show. And so much went down, as you would expect. Cody Rhodes, first of all, comes out with a brass band. Cool entrance for him, but you know what? Roman Reigns can't let that go. He can't have a regular old entrance after that. Of course, he has to come out with an orchestra as well. When he does, he comes alone. It's strange. There was no one with him. No Paul Heyman, no Bloodline, no title. It did feel strange, right? Even seeing him put his one in the air felt a little odd. They did refer back to Ole Anderson turning on Dusty Rhodes at the Omni, which apparently is within the same footprint, essentially, of the State Farm Arena. So that's a nice little callback there. And basically saying, look, this incredible story of a year and a half where Ole kind of eventually turned on Dusty. Is it going to happen with Roman and Cody tonight? Can he trust him? Obviously not the same sort of stakes. It's not a year and a half, but still nice that they used that kind of history as well. It took a while, but Cody finally tagged in Roman Reigns, who, as you can imagine, went to town. He did a nice, sweet little crucifix, nearly got the pin on that as well after dodging Solo's Samoan Spike. And then eventually we got a nice double super kick from Solo and Jacob Fatu. A moonsault, a splash, but no, it was only a 2 for the Bloodline. Eventually, Cody Rhodes heads outside and basically takes care of Jacob Fatu with a crossroads. And then you end up getting Cody Rhodes splashing Jacob Fatu through the announce table like it had been done to him just a few months ago now when Jacob, of course, got injured. No foot injury for Cody, thankfully. Eventually, though, you get the Gorillas of Destiny coming out, Tama Tonga and Tangaloa coming out, and it looks like it's going to be over, for the team of Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. But no, Reigns kicks out, and then we finally get the return of Jimmy Uso. So glad to see him back. I think it was so well executed. Strange though, in the sense that he was just stood there, and the viewers of him in the background going, "Wait, who's that?" For quite a while. I mean, I think we knew who it was, but still, it was odd. It was a while before they turned it around and basically, was overcome by him. He reveals himself and whatever else. So, pretty cool way to do it. And like I say, we expected that to be it. Maybe that's the big surprise. Jimmy Uso, fantastic. So cool to be him back. He looks great. Looks in great shape. Michael Cole really hyped up that they were the original Bloodline and all that kind of stuff. Be interested to see what happens with Jey Uso now. Maybe even Sami Zayn in the future. But yeah, it seemed like that was going to be the end of the show. Then Cody starts getting beat up. Jimmy is telling Reigns to come, let's help. And I thought if he doesn't, this will be spoiled, it'll be wasted now, because Jimmy was full face, fully a baby face here. And while there was kind of scope for Reigns to turn, I guess, on Cody within the match or something like that and be a big swerve and actually, embrace Solo, that would have been wild. It would have been at least kind of a twist and a turn unexpected and something nice to see, like something interesting to see where they were going with that. Whereas I didn't like the possibility of him not helping Cody and therefore basically being a heel and not being with the new bloodline and mixing the old one together. I didn't like the idea of that. So I'm glad they didn't go with that. And I'm glad that, he ended up jumping in the ring with Jimmy to kind of help out. And then all of a sudden, if you smell, The Rock is back. Again, for The Rock to show up in Bad Blood, I think it's pretty cool. To end the show like that, I think it's pretty cool. The fact The Rock is back is pretty cool. But at the same time, I don't know, man. Could we not spread it out? Unless it's because he is going to be in the match at War Games. Unless it's because of that, then fair enough. Which he must be, right? He come up with a People's Championship, by the way. Nice carrying around your own little replica belt. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not sure how I feel about it. I guess until we see where we're going with it. And now that we've got Crown Jewel, it doesn't feel like there'll be much progression there. Maybe not with The Rock at least. I don't think he's going to be there. I mean, you're going to have Cody Rhodes at this very moment in time versus Gunther. So that'll be taking Cody in another direction anyway. The Bloodline situation, of course, can run parallel and separate to that. But yeah, I don't know how to feel about it just yet. I mean, ultimately, I'm happy he's back. Don't get me wrong. This is what I wanted. I wanted Jimmy back. I wanted Rock back. I wanted Jimmy on the side of Roman. I wanted Rock to basically be on the side of Solo. But I think the reveal of... I really would have liked old Bloodline versus new Bloodline at Survivor Series, and then the Rock to come back and reveal himself as the kind of kingpin, essentially, behind the new Bloodline. Where we've kind of already got that. I mean, maybe on SmackDown we get some more. Maybe Rock's going to be on SmackDown. It'd be interesting to see if that is the case. I thought his work after the last time he came back on shows like SmackDown and being there quite frequently really was really good and really added to the story. So maybe we'll get a lot of progression in that sense this time around as well. But what are your thoughts, guys? Let me know in the comments what you're thinking, whether you're watching live or on demand. I'd love to hear what you thought of the show overall, what you thought of that main event and the surprises within it as well. Of course, you are watching our instant reaction review, but I want to say thank you to everyone that joined us earlier on this week as well for our prediction show, our clip from Lucas talking about how the Hell in a Cell and its history is so kind of varied in the sense that it had this massive peak at the beginning and it starts to dip in other areas, and trying to kind of decipher whether or not it's kind of lost its shine. I do think tonight's showing really showed that there is something to do with the Hell in a Cell going forward. But a weird fact though, I swear they said it was the 53rd Hell in a Cell match in WWE history. If that's the case, yeah, we've definitely had too many. It could have been what he said. I must have misheard that. Because, no. I must have misheard that. Anyway, but once again, thank you to everyone who joined us on the build-up show. That was great to have so many of you with us again. Really do appreciate it. Of course, if you weren't there for us earlier on, please subscribe. Join us for the next one. The idea is to get us and you guys in the mood for the PLE as well. Just looked it up. Yeah, there'd been up until tonight 52 apparently. So wow. There was a stage where I could name every single one of them. I don't know if I can name every one from the last 10 years anymore. So wow. Anyway, that's that. But again, it was a great showing. I've got to be honest. It was a good show between Drew and Punk. Look, I'm old school in the sense that I want the cell to break. I want people outside it and flying through it or off of it, right? Because as Lucas said, it peaked pretty early with those originals, right? But at the same time, I thought the way they used the cell was quite clever. The whole selling of the cell itself is that it's it's this insane match type where anything can happen and kind of is chaotic and stuff like that. If you take the cell away, because let's be honest, the two guys in it tonight didn't use the cell itself that often compared to other matches. That could have been a street fight. So that's the only negative I'd say about the cell, that it kind of didn't need to be a cell match, but it gave the cell a new kind of, I guess, feel to it, you know. And I think sometimes wrestlers go into these matches to challenge themselves to kind of not use things in certain ways and not rely on certain things. So while I get that, it does somewhat defeat the purpose, because it is at the point in the cell that you can't escape or you can't get in. That's number one. And number two is that, well, the cell is a weapon. So anyway, don't want to be down on it, because again, it was a great match overall. Really enjoyed it. And I got to say, overall, it was a good show. I did enjoy the show. I did feel getting into, towards the end of it, that maybe although it had highlights like the opener, it wasn't one of the better shows of the year. But I think just for the big moments at the end, it kind of pushed it up a little bit more and gave it a few more extra marks as well. But hey, that's my kind of instant reaction, guys, for Bad Blood 2024. It's been a real privilege, as always, to enjoy this PLE alongside you guys. We appreciate everyone that subscribes again over the past few days of all our content here on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, from our prediction show to our build-up earlier on, and those that have joined us on the instant reaction here as well. Also want to send out a thank you to everyone that's joined us recently on our TikTok at RN Pro Wrestling, our Instagram, and of course with our shorts here on YouTube as well. We really do appreciate you kind of consuming that content, spreading the word about what we're doing here on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, which, by the way, if you are new here, you might not realize, but we do have some interviews with the likes of Rhea Ripley on this very channel. If you haven't already, please go back and check our interview with Kevin Owens. We've also had the great opportunity to chat to the likes of Bayley as well. So if you haven't, please go back and check those out. Please subscribe to us for more wrestling content. I've been Scott. This has been your Bad Blood Instant Reaction. And we're going to see you very soon for more content on this channel. I'm sure, as I say, we've got Crown Jewel coming up very soon. We've got Survivor Series, and then we've got Saturday night's main event. So it's going to be a big kind of few months ahead as we kind of make our way towards the end of 2024. But thank you so much, guys, for joining me. See you on the next one.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.